Welcome along to another Westerleigh VR preview of one of our Westerleigh VR races. It's 2.4, that's Series 2, race number 4, Cream of the Chalfonts. We'll explain the name later on in the preview, but let's get cracking on the course. There's a great big downhill that we're about to embark upon straight from the start. So if you slow off the start and you miss this, you might find yourself gapped. As I say, it's straight away off the start. As you saw, we went over that mini roundabout and we're straight down this hill towards Chalfonts St Giles. We're going to go through several of the Chalfonts, and again, we'll explain that later. But this hill now is taking us down into Chalfonts St Giles, as I said. We're heading towards the cottage of John Milton, the poet from a few hundred years ago. I'm not an expert on poetry, can't remember all his famous poems, but I'm sure the better educated amongst you will be familiar with John Milton, who is a classic English poet. His house we will see shortly on the right as we carry on descending down this hill. You can see it's quite fast, it'll be a fast blast down the hill, fast and furious, like most of the Westerleigh CC 16-kilometre races that we put on for you on the Westerleigh VR series. Here we are, Series 2, Race 4, as I say. Now you can see there's some grass on the right, and just at the end of this little green section there is a building. That is John Milton's cottage, where he used to live, presumably write poems, so you can see what inspired him. It was, I'm not sure all of these buildings would have been there when he lived there, but quite a few old buildings, as you can see here, as we head into Chalfonts St Giles village centre. Now, as we hit the centre, we're at the bottom of a valley. This is the valley of the River Misbourne. It's not a particularly big river, and you won't particularly notice it. But as I say, when we hit the bottom, which is about now, as you can see, there's a little village green on the right. What's left of it, there's a church behind the houses on our right. Because it's about the only village I know of where the church isn't prominent in the landscape of the village. But there we are. This is the bottom of the Misbourne Valley, and it's very shortly, as you can see, right, starting about now, we're going to get this ramp up because we're going up the other side of the valley. Fortunately, we're not going all the way up the other side of the valley, or at least not yet, because we're going to take a sharp left. But this little ramp here might just catch you out, so be very aware of this. There is this ramp after the descent. As I say, we don't go all the way up the hill, but it's steep enough, and you can see I'm slowing down quite a lot on the bike just to get up this, because it is quite steep. You can see by the side of the building on the right how steep it is. But we're going left, and we're going to go along the A413, which is the main road that follows the Misbourne Valley. I say out of London. I think if you imagine a bicycle wheel and you look at the hub and assume the hub is London, all the spokes coming out of the hub are very close together at the hub, but they sort of fan out and become more apart later on. So this A413 is one of these roads out of London that's sort of fanning out. It starts very close to the A40, A412, those sorts of roads, and takes us up towards Wendover and eventually Aylesbury. It's not the most important of the A roads coming out of London, because it's sitting somewhere between the A40, the M40 and the A41, all of which are, much busier roads and set up for more traffic. So this road's not too bad to cycle along, even though it is an A road coming out of London. A roads in the UK, for those of you watching abroad, are the highest category of roads where virtually everybody's allowed to go along them, including pedestrians and cyclists. M roads for motorways, which other people might call autoroutes, highways, things like that. But yeah, for kind of all-comers types roads, A roads is the top notch. So this is an A road, but luckily for us, don't get too much traffic on it, because everybody's using the busy motorway, the M40, which is to our left, not too far away. So we're going to go along here, but this is in a trajectory that would, I suppose, naturally, if you just carried on going, take you up towards somewhere in the Birmingham, West Midlands area of the country. As I say, it is sort of running a little bit parallel to the M40, which runs between London and Birmingham. And consequently, it's also the route of the new high-speed rail link, which they're building between London and Birmingham. So as we carry on along the road, the works for the railway are to our left, but we're not going to be exempt from their effect because although they're building the railway in what one might describe fields, and I don't know how much of it is overground or underground, the traffic and the lorries that need to go and service all that work do get to it via this road. And you can see the little sign there saying there's a traffic jam. Now, just before I recorded this, I came up this road the other way and went back up the hill we just came down. And the queue of traffic for these roadworks, you see the roadwork sign on your left there, went back a long, long way. And in fact, where we're riding now was all queued up traffic. So whilst I've been going back up the hill and riding back down again, it has cleared up a little bit. But the effect of these works on the railway has an impact along here. And further up the A413, any time trialists amongst you will be aware that it's the Great Missenden courses, which I think have got 10, 25, maybe even a 50 out of Great Missenden. And it's on this same road. And we are looking at the time trials calendar for 2021 at this moment, and there are some grave reservations as to whether the road will be usable for a lot of the time trials during the 2021 season because of the effect, as you see here, of the lorries and works needing to get to the railway building, which is on our left. As we go past here, you will see there's a turning a little way along the left, which is where all the lorries go, and the works are actually down there. That lane is actually quite a nice little lane, but it's closed to traffic at the moment because of the works, and consequently there it is, just on the left. And we did a club ride up there the other day, and because no cars go up it, it's quite interesting to note that all the leaves falling off the trees in autumn, or fall if you speak American English, autumn if you speak English, all the leaves and all the debris from the wind and rain and everything, instead of getting blown away by the cars and pinged across the road, there's no cars going up it, and it was absolutely, despite some nice tarmac, was absolutely covered in debris from the fall in the autumn. And consequently, I got one of those really nasty punctures that I'm on tubeless tyres, wouldn't even fix with a plug, and then had a great deal of difficulty getting myself home. Managed it in the end, but it was quite an interesting experience, and just showed how much cars clear the road for us along some of the country lanes that we ride. Now, so we've been flat along this valley. We're going to do a sharp right here, and we're going to carry on going up the side of it. So immediately here, you get a steep ramp. Now, again, smoothed on RGT, this is not going to be quite as traumatic as it actually is when you just turn out of there from a standing start. And don't forget, you all have momentum, which we don't when we're doing that right turn on a ride. The steepest bit is the bit we're just going up. You can see that I've quite clearly slowed down here. But this is going to go uphill for some time, and it's going to take us to the top of that Misbourne Valley. And we're going to effectively go back on ourselves at the top of the valley, and eventually there'll be a steep descent towards the finish, but not to the finish. So basically we're going to go along the crest of this valley once we've done this climb, which, as I say, will go on for a little while. It's not particularly steep, but it goes on for a little while. And we're going to go along the crest and then back down to the A413, which is the road we've just come off, which is the road that goes along the valley bottom. But when we reach down there, that's not the end of the race. We're going to go along a road parallel to the A413 on the flat. So you will have something like perhaps 3/4 of a kilometre flat sprint after something like 3/4 of a kilometre downhill. So the last 1.5 to 2 kilometres is either going to be downhill or flat. So it's going to be very, very full on. This is, I suppose, the longest climb of the day. It's not particularly steep. As I say, we are going up to the top of the valley. You can see already my bike's speeding up because the gradients settle down a little bit. When we get to the top, slightly undulating, so it's not completely flat. You will have to sort of go up and down some dips. And as long as you've got your wits about you, you won't get dropped in an RGT race. But I think this is where you're going to really sort out who's going to be in that winning pack and who's not, because this is the long climb up this valley. So just to recap, you come down the sprint. There's the little ramp up before we turn onto the A413, flat along the A413, level with the railway works, then up this long climb, which is the long climb of the day. If you get up this and you're in the pack, if you can stay with the pack for most of the way, you will be in with a shout, because you'll get to the descent, and as long as, again, you don't make any mistakes, miss the descent, as I say, the last probably 750 metres or more will be a flat sprint along the Misbourne Valley, going in the opposite direction to the way we've just been. As you can see, this is levelling out. It goes on for a while, but it's not particularly steep, apart from that first little ramp as we turn off the A413. So we started by going down into Chalfonts St Giles, went along the Misbourne Valley, and now we're climbing up towards Little Chalfont. Chalfonts St Giles and Chalfonts St Peter are very, very old villages. You saw back as we were going through Chalfonts St Giles, all the old houses, Milton's cottage, things like that. Little Chalfont probably didn't exist at the time of Milton, and I think grew up because when the underground railways from London expanded out here towards Chesham and Amersham, they built a railway station, which I assume was probably in the middle of nowhere when they first built it, called Chalfont and Latimer, and a lot of more modern buildings have sprung up around that railway line over the last 100 years or so, I guess. And Little Chalfont was probably not a village at all. So it's just going left here, we're sort of in Little Chalfont now, and you'll see that it's full of very nice houses. They are modern, but done in classical styles, largely because they're moneyed people who travel into London on the railway line. The underground trains coming all the way out here and go direct to the city of London. So you'll find a lot of people working banks and things like that. Made a lot of money living in nice houses, as you can see, either side of the road. And that's what Little Chalfont is. It's very much built around the railway, but it's been cultivated quite nicely. So this road will take us to what I would roughly call the village centre. There's plenty of shops built around the underground station. I say underground, it always must sound odd to people who are not from London, of course, but same with New York. You know, the subway or the underground, they are underground in the centre of the city, but the outer bits tend to be overground, and I'm sure that's pretty true for metro subway systems around the world. You don't need to dig tunnels when you come out here. So here we are. This is Little Chalfont village. We're going to swing round and start looping back on ourselves, going in an easterly direction. We've been coming out west and slightly northwest. So we'll just swing around these little roundabouts. This is the main road out to Amersham. Again, one of those bicycle spoke type wheels coming out of London that all run parallel. So this one's running parallel to the 413. This one goes from Rickmansworth up to Amersham. We turn right here, and a little parade of shops ahead of us is, I suppose, the nearest shop to the railway station. In fact, one of my friends has a very nice artisan bakery there called Rex. Rex Bakery, if you're ever in Little Chalfont. He has won awards around the world for his bread. He actually moved here because he worked in the City of London, but gave it all up and started his own little artisan bakery, and has become one of the best bakers around. Rex Bakery, Chalfont, Little Chalfont, actually. So going back down one of these roads that probably is not that well known, but I think it's a fantastic little cycling road. I mean, I use this road a lot for rides in and out of London, going up towards the Chilterns. You'll see there's very little traffic, lots of nice houses either side of the road for the well-heeled residents of Little Chalfont, who no doubt mostly work in London and catch that commuter train into London every morning. So this road has very little traffic, takes us out towards Chorley Wood. Chorley Wood is another one of those places on that Metropolitan Line Railway, which the well-heeled have settled and civilised for their weekend, I suppose, bolt holes stroke evening residences. I'd say it's a very fast tube line, actually, so it's quite a good connection into London. As you can see, this road, very, very little traffic. It was a particularly windy day when I did this. I'm not sure the camera is picking it up, but there were just leaves coming down constantly. At one stage, a little bit later, actually riding it, it felt like you were in a snowstorm, except it was leaves. You can see that, yeah, you can see sort of the odd leaves there being caught by the camera. So this was quite a hard ride in this direction on this particular day, as I say, due to that wind. But, once again, it is a very, very, I suppose, empty road. You don't get much traffic. The tarmac's not too bad, and it's quite pleasant. All right, it's not the greatest scenery in terms of stunning views and all the rest of it, unless you're into looking at other people's houses. Make sure you don't get house envy around here, though, because they are rather nice. So, cream of the Chalfonts, and certainly the Chalfonts, if you're judging it by wealth, have cream of society living in them. South Bucks generally is a very, very rich area. But why did I call it cream of the Chalfonts? I mean, yes, we're going to Chalfonts and Giles. We've just done Little Chalfont. Next up is Chalfont Common, and then Chalfont St Peter. So we'll have done 4 Chalfonts on this little route. We'll have seen some of the best places in terms of residences, I guess. So is that why I called it the cream of Chalfonts? No, not really. I was just in one of my sort of schoolboy humour moods, and anyone who is familiar with Cockney rhyming slang, not that I think there's many of us who know every single one of them, will realise that the Chalfonts is a Cockney rhyming slang phrase. So if you are watching and you're not familiar with Cockney rhyming slang, it's not as prevalent and common as it used to be probably 50 years ago. But essentially, it's language where you use a phrase that rhymes with the word you meant to use, and everybody else will understand what you're saying because they're familiar with what these rhymes are. And it's partly so that, the police and people like that back in the day, hundreds of years ago, couldn't understand what you were talking about. It was sort of code, so you just used the words that rhymed with the word you meant to use. So what do Chalfonts rhyme with? Well, it's somewhat convoluted with some of these. Give you an example. We are currently going down the Frog and Toad, or we're going down the road, and in general, I think a lot of them you just use the first word and not the one that rhymes, which makes it more difficult for somebody to understand what you're saying. And we're going to do a little right turn here and take us back onto the road. Well, it's a road we were on slightly earlier, but I won't go through the description. This is a nice little lane. And this was the road I was saying that where I got the showers of leaves, but I don't think the camera really does it justice. So going back to the rhyming slang, if you're sitting on a saddle, the last thing you'd want is hemorrhoids, because it's not going to be the most comfortable thing to be suffering from when you're on a saddle. Hemorrhoids are generally, in common language, referred to as piles, and Chalfonts and Giles is the rhyming slang for piles. In fact, there's 2 rhyming slangs for piles. It's Farmer Giles or Chalfonts and Giles. So what do you use for hemorrhoids? You use cream, and so it became the cream of the Chalfonts. So if I use any rhyming slang, you're going to have to use your loaf. That's your loaf of bread, your head, which use your loaf was a common phrase, certainly when I was younger, just to make, think about it. Use your loaf, use your loaf of bread, use your head. So anyway, a bit peculiar to me that Chalfonts and Giles is a Cockney rhyming slang thing, because Cockney rhyming slang comes from East London predominantly, and Chalfonts and Giles is west of London, so it's not natural territory. I'm not sure that every criminal in East London 150 years ago would have been aware that Chalfonts and Giles existed, but who am I to question why? But of course, a lot of Cockney rhyming slangs are modern. British people will have heard in modern parlance people talking about something going Pete Tong, which means it's gone wrong. Pete Tong is a DJ from Radio 1, and his name happens to rhyme with wrong. So if it's all gone Pete Tong, it's all gone wrong. Funny enough, a friend of mine actually made that one up with Pete Tong in the room many, many years ago in the 1980s. And I gather Pete Tong has verified that as well, that it was his idea. Anyway, back to this. We won't punctuate the whole commentary with Cockney rhyming slang and whatnot, but yeah, so here we are. This is a little lane we're crossing over back onto a more main road that links Little Chalfont with Chalfonts and Peter, and shortly we will be going through the few more lanes and past the Chiltern Museum. The Chilterns is an area northwest of London. In modern times, most people, when they talk about the Chilterns, actually mean the Chiltern Hills. But in medieval times, the Chiltern was a far greater area, and the hills were just a part of the Chilterns. And the Chilterns was made up of 3 districts, which, funny enough, are, I suppose, a bit hard to describe today. But the Chiltern Hills are within the wider definition of the Chilterns, and we are definitely within the Chilterns here. And the Chiltern Open Air Museum is something we're going to go past over here. When you actually drive through the area, you'll see signs sometimes saying you're in the Chilterns, which to me don't really correspond with the proper Chilterns boundaries, but I think local councils want to be part of the Chilterns. There's a massive amount of hills in the Chilterns. They're not the largest ones just outside London, but there are far more of them than any other area just outside London. Now we're going to turn left here down Deadhurns Lane, which I think should be renamed Roubaix Lane. You'll see the tarmac's not too bad down here, some nice houses. There's something like a 70-metre stretch about halfway down under some trees where the roots of the trees have completely distorted the tarmac, and you will notice that the camera will shake all over the place any second. And then as soon as you're out of this little section, which is just coming now, you can see where the shadows are of the trees and the car coming, and all of a sudden the camera is all blurred because of the road, which your eyes, even when you're riding it in real life, your eyes just don't see it in the way that you feel it, because it's so rough going on. I mean, I have ridden Paris-Roubaix and Tranche-D'Arenberg. I mean, this isn't quite as bad as them, but it's not far off, and lots of bits have fallen off my bikes down this lane. Luckily on RGT, you're not going to suffer for this. And funny enough, though, as soon as you get to the end, just here, the road reverts to being as smooth as you like. It's a really strange section of road. As I say, it's the roots underneath it which completely messed up the road surface, but you really do notice it coming down because you're coming slightly downhill. It's one of the undulations along the top of the valley. So, as I say, just to recap, we started by going down into the bottom of the Misbourne Valley. We went along it for a little while along the A413, turned right, came up the hill to Little Chalfont, looped round the village at Little Chalfont, and we're effectively still going along the top, the crest of the Misbourne Valley at the high end, albeit there's slight undulations like you just saw in Deadhurns Lane there, where we went down over the temporary Roubaix tarmac, just through this little section here, which floods when it rains too much, as we found out on a recent club ride the other day, with water right up to the pedals. Now, normally we'd go right back into London there, but we're going to carry on. I just need to stop and make a little adjustment to my bike, unfortunately, but nothing a little bit of editing won't sort out, so we carry on. The Chilterns Open Air Museum is on our right. One of the RGT races in the Westerley VR series is actually named after the Chiltern Open Air Museum, and actually comes down this road, albeit in the other direction. Basically, I haven't been in the Open Air Museum in decades, but what they did was got some old buildings and sort of rebuilt them or recreated them. And I think they moved some original buildings and or just recreated others out of original materials so that you can go around and see what rural country life in Buckinghamshire in the Chiltern areas would have been like back through the ages. I should really go and pay it a visit and see what it's like, because I'm sure in the time that I haven't been visiting it, they probably added lots and lots more interesting items to go and see. So this is it coming up on the left, I believe. Maybe not. That's no, I'm not sure. Yes, it is. So that's the entrance into it. As I say, it's an open air museum, so you sort of kind of traipse around, and they've built little farm buildings and things like that from other times. So we're going to go along here. Nothing too sort of severe to be aware of. It's going to be flat. We're still at the top. Normally I would carry on riding straight along here, and it would take us down to Maple Cross, and so I suppose it's London North Orbital Road. But we're not going to go. So we're heading towards London, but I'm not going to take you that far because we're going to hang a right in a moment. And that right will sort of loop round, not quite 180 degrees, but then take us back southwards towards Chalfonts and Peter. And remember, the race is going to finish on that big sharp descent, followed by a flat sprint. And I'm guessing the distances, but I think, you're probably talking about 1.5K before the end. That's where it's all going to explode, both on the descent and as soon as you've done the descent, down the straight flat bit to the finish. The finish in a very nondescript roundabout on the A413, the road we were earlier on, but in another part of it. So we've really gone back on ourselves. This is kind of looped back. We're heading eastwards, whereas when we were on the A413 before, we were heading westwards or northwesterly perhaps more. So the right-hand turn's coming up. It's just more lanes. It's nothing to worry about in terms of RGT racing insofar as there's no real big dips or anything here. I mean, there's slight undulations on this whole crest bit, but nothing that's really going to disrupt your rhythm, I don't think, in an RGT race. So at the end of this small lane, we'll do a right, and then we're heading back towards Chalfont Common. Chalfont Common, then as soon as we've sort of gone through Chalfont Common, we'll hit the big descent down Joiners Lane. Most people who live in this area will be familiar with Joiners Lane, more because they've suffered going up it than down it. Down it's fine, except that there's a roundabout at the bottom, so you can't get the full benefit from it because you have to brake before the roundabout, which is again on that A413, so it's quite busy compared to what you're coming down. So here we are, less leaves here because it's hedgerows rather than trees, but typical lane in South Bucks. This is sort of area we go riding on locally. So if you're not from the area, I'm sure if you're from Britain, your lanes look pretty similar to this, but if you're not from Britain, maybe they don't. And lots of little country houses popping up along these lanes. I'm sure at some point the overspill of London will make them busier than they already are, and the odd housing estate will pop up around some of these lanes. But we enjoy cycling them like this at the moment, so much so that I can pretend I'm in France and ride on that side of the road, or pretend I'm in Britain and ride on this side of the road because there's no traffic. So as we carry on a very British mode on the left-hand side, not a lot to say. As I say, this is reasonably flat. It's not to the extent there is some. Sorry about the little ping there, but my football team just scored, so that's good news. So we're going to do a right here, and as I say, this will take us back to towards Chalfont Common and then Chalfont St Peter. Just waiting for the traffic there. It's a little bit of editing, and here we go. It's quite a nice little road. I mean, there's nothing particular noteworthy from an RGT racing point of view. I mean, there's slight undulations, but nothing too significant. You can see the road dipping a little bit here. Again, but you'll see nice quiet roads that we enjoy cycling. And we're not very, very far from the M25 here. When I say we're not very far, I mean less than probably half a mile, 750 metres, something like that, to our left. The M25 is maybe a little bit more than that, actually, maybe a kilometre to our left is the M25, which is the orbital road motorway around London. And here we are on absolutely quiet roads, cycling in West London Chilterns terrain, which is Westerleigh Cycling Club's stomping ground when it comes to club rides and things like that. And we do enjoy sharing them with you. And thank you to everybody who participates in our Westerly VR races. I mean, we don't get anything out of it other than the pleasure of your company. And I have to say that the spirit in which the races are carried out and some of the banter and the nice comments we get from people makes it very, very worthwhile. So thank you for joining in the community, and especially those from far and wide. I mean, fantastic response from Scotland and Belgium and places like that, the USA, Australia, New Zealand. It's absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much. We hope you enjoy them as much as we do. I think you must do, because you seem to come back for more of them. And these little previews give you a chance to see what they actually look like in real life. So here we are, we're into Chalfont Common now. Again, this is not one of the old villages like Chalfont St Peter and Chalfont St Giles, which have been there for the thick end of 1,000 years and are featured in the Domesday Book, which is, I think, was written about, I don't know, in the 12th century, I think, recording all the villages. And Chalfont St Giles, Chalfont St Peter are mentioned. These places aren't. You can see they're more modern. They're not quaint little twee English-British villages. So the architecture is much more modern. Now then, as I say, we're on Chalfont Common. We are going to hit a right any minute down Joiners Lane. As I say, any local riders will know Joiners Lane, mainly, as I say, because of the grind coming up it. It's reasonably steep, and I think you get something of a bit of momentum going up it. You do come off a roundabout, and as I say, going down it is slightly disappointing because you have to brake before the end because of this busy roundabout, or potentially busy roundabout at the bottom. Of course, you slam on the brakes and then there's nothing there, and you think, wow, I could have done that so much faster. Anyway, this is, as I say, Chalfont Common, although I suspect some of these people might call it Chalfont St Peter, as the two places sort of seem to merge into each other around this area. This road, if we carried on, if we went in the opposite direction to the way we're travelling, takes us back up to the road we've just been on, past the Epilepsy Centre, which is a massive, massive set of buildings where they look after people with epilepsy. But from a cycling point of view, is the home of one of the biggest, possibly the biggest, but if not the second biggest, bike jumble the whole of the UK has. It happens twice a year. It didn't happen in 2020 because of COVID. But if you do come up to Chalfont Common at the Epilepsy Centre, there's one in April, one in November, bike jumbles. And even if you are going to buy absolutely nothing, just walking around in awe and looking at all the old bike gear for sale, for collectors and people who make up old bikes, is just absolutely awesome. And I must admit, I do come away with some memorabilia tat on most occasions. But one of the things that amused me at the last time I went, which would have been November 2019, I saw a friend of mine who was busy buying up old copies of Cycling Weekly from his younger racing days, because he was listed in there for winning the races. and the look on his face, he was so glad just to sort of pick up these copies with his name all over the race. These are the local races, not the big pro ones. But yeah, I was delighted for him. So if you're watching, Tony, that was, the look on your face was just fantastic when you saw your name in all those old Cycling Weekly magazines. So this is Joiners Lane, and you can see we're already going down the hill, and you can see it's just getting sort of, the gradient's getting more and more acute. The road's slipping away from us. You can see across the valley to the main rump of Chalfont St Peter, where, funnily enough, the former president of Westerley Cycling Club, one of those houses in front of us, one of the little white dots, is his. Don't know which one, at least not from here, I don't. But so we're going fast and furious down Joiners Lane. Now, as I say, in real life, we're going to hit around about the bottom here, so we tend to sort of have to slow down. You won't. You'll carry on. As you go over the roundabout, you wind into the centre of Chalfont St Peter. So here we are. We're at the bottom. Here's a roundabout that we have to brake for. You can see there's traffic going across most of the time, including cyclists. Now, we're going to go straight across here. As I say, you won't notice because you won't have to brake there. We wind round past the old Greyhound Inn there and into the centre of Chalfont St Peter. Again, this is an old village, although you'll see some of the buildings a bit more modern on the left. The Greyhound Inn obviously was quite old. Now we're going to swing to the left here rather than going up Gold Hill, which is to our right. Normally, a cyclist would all go up Gold Hill. And in fact, I very rarely use Joiners Hill actually, because I go up Gold Hill on that side. There's a little turn on the left just coming up that you'll hardly notice. Is a hill called Chiltern Hill, which runs parallel to Joiners Lane. And I think the fact it's called Chiltern Hill shows you that this is the entrance to Chiltern Hill just there. In fact, it's called Chiltern Hill. Probably suggests to you that the Chilterns come, much closer to London than the modern day definition actually tells you. So this is the flat sprint. We're just going to go along to this road to the end of this road, which hits the bottom of a hill that goes up to Gerrard's Cross. As I say, there's nothing to report here other than just sprint, 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 sprint. Make sure that you're in the right gear and your breathing is sufficient, and you can cling on to the end, because the end is coming, as some woe is me predictions will have it, but we're not very far from it now. As I say, there's not much to report. We are really in the sprint. I mean, you're just going to see us come up to a junction at the end, which you can see now. You can see the signs ahead of us. That's the finish up ahead, and you can see the cars going across, and this is it. So thank you very much for watching. Good luck in the race. We'll see you online, virtually of course.